Musings podcast, where we do our special again with Doc. Hi, Doc. Good to have you back on again. How are you doing?
Pleasure to be here. Very well, thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. Like the three of us seemed to work well last time, and it certainly got some attention on the social media. So it's great to have the three of us back on discussing stuff. And of course, we've got Kenny in Scotland. How are you?
Yep, I'm all good. Good to speak again, Doc. Whereabouts you actually calling from? Because I've seen some nice kind of warm pictures a couple of days ago, or maybe last week.
Yeah, so I've had another 2 weeks in Cyprus. Returned on Saturday late evening because the travel corridor now between both countries is closed, so you have to isolate for 14 days. In my wisdom, I came back only to find that we go into lockdown anyway. So perhaps I should have stayed there. Back in rainy UK for now.
Yeah, it's pretty grim up here. So as it's cold and yeah, it's definitely winter. Oh yeah, it's dark now in Scotland. It's 20 to 5 and yeah, I'm guaranteed by 5 o'clock it'll be pitch black.
Is it yeah, pitch yeah. It's been
just
quite a nice day here actually.
Yeah, but it'll certainly not be as pitch black for Mr. Trump anyway. Obviously we're recording this on Friday afternoon, so it looks like he's gone. He's fired. I see it's trending on Twitter. You're fired.
Seems to be going that way. Yeah.
The bugger cost me £100 because I put £100 on him to win. And I think, Doc, you had some money on him as well because we could. Come on,
let's move on quickly because yes, I did, and I'm not big for gambling at the bookies, but I was totally convinced at just shy of 2-1 that he offered great value. The price come in, they were offering to cash out for I think 75-80% of the total return, and like a greedy sod, I'm sitting there thinking, no, I'm taking it all. He's a sure winner. Biden, in my opinion, is equally as questionable as Trump. Often people say to me, how can you like Donald Trump? Go and watch some of the videos on Biden and look into his son and his practices and all of these really creepy pictures of him sniffing and kissing children. I find it all a bit strange. And yes, Donald Trump is a very odd man, but Biden is is a far cry from being a healthy replacement as president of America. It's a right message.
I suppose if Trump is an odd man, at least we know the odd man. It's a bit unknown with Biden, isn't it, yet?
Yeah, he's I don't know, he's been about a long time. So he's I can't remember. I remember there was an article about his career. It was certainly interesting, but no, they don't seem, the two guys don't seem to have a lot of substance about them. So, I don't know. But listen, I imagine it'll be good for investors because regardless who get in, they're pumping money into the economy. So,
God bless America. We see Bitcoin price flying right now, and everybody's sort of foaming over Bitcoin again, and renewables with Biden in charge. So who knows, man? It seems like there's going to be an opportunity on the back of this somewhere in the market, and we just need to find out where that might be.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my big pile of silver here, growing in value, because I think silver's up like 7% in the last 3 days or something. So
weekly it's up 8% on the week. Yeah.
On the week, yeah. No, I think Biden's got quite an aggressive green plan, so he has, which involves obviously a lot of the key metals, copper, nickel, and I didn't really appreciate that silver was actually in that green revolution as well. But when you start looking at solar panels and such things, silver is by far the best conductor. So they use silver for maximum efficiency. They don't recycle silver either at the moment, because they recycle copper. So yeah, interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, it isn't recycled. You're right. It tends to get wasted almost. I've noticed. I've been seeing your regular tweets as your silver hoard increases. Would you say you're a hoarder? Is your wife happy with all of that coming into the house?
Yeah, she's fine. She's fine. Listen, you've known me long enough, Mark, and I've spoke often enough with Doc. I'm quite an addictive personality, so
that's what I thought.
I mean, it's not just I've suddenly started collecting coins. I've got like, I don't know, 300 or 400 50 pences and £2 coins and £1 coins downstairs that are all, the ones that you can, some of the 50 pences are worth 15, 20 quid, some of them. So I've been doing it for a while. I've just upped the ante now. So I'm on to silver. Maybe next year it'll be gold. Who knows?
Okay.
I'll tell you what, honestly, I can imagine you're going to be like One-Eyed Willie out of the Goonies film, aren't you? Someone's going to find the treasure map, and suddenly, you'll get to the bottom of Kenny's Garden, and there'll be a massive haul of loot in about 500 years' time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're quite apt with that description. Yeah. That's why we're doing this podcast about video, because I'm certainly not designed for TV.
No me.
Yeah.
Let's talk stocks. What's been interesting us this week?
Yeah, it's been quite a strange week. There's been some really rubbish days and then some really, really good days. I mean, I had a really good day yesterday. It's quite a good theme, actually, because we talked about it last time. We talked about shells. So I picked up some Attis oil and gas maybe about 3 months ago and just kind of sat on them. And out of the blue, they announced this. It's a new thing in me. It's AIM Rule 41 amalgamation. And I was half expecting the reverse takeover. So obviously, the shares at one point were almost up 200% yesterday. So it was a great opportunity for me just to exit stage left. So I took that all day long. It was unexpected. Sometimes these things creep up you. You don't expect it. So I took profit. I was delighted. It was a nice week.
So for investors who perhaps are out there and they're not aware of Attis and the whole backstory, that was Mayan Energy and North Coast Petroleum before that, and kind of been rebranded into this sort of shell vehicle. There's been a bit of money raised and loaned to it, and it was bumbling along at sort of, was it 0.01p? I know you were buying it really quite early on, and a few other people did well out of it, and then Bosch, things are trading, 003 yesterday, and you could have sold in size. And I had a bunch of conversations with people and said, look, this helium deal could be amazing. And actually, apart from the involvement of Charlie Wood and one or two other people who I believe are, unreliable, the actual asset class is superb. And if you think about some of the peers in the helium space, they've done particularly well over the last year. So, helium in this asset could go very, very well. But the vehicle itself, they'd made it very clear that the funds were going in at 0.012p. It's trading at 003. Unless you think the 6 million or 7 million quid they raised is going to come in and it's going to trade at a premium to 003, there was always going to be some indigestion. You might as well take some off the table, and you were smart enough to do it. And I know a couple of others who did too. And, it's probably getting towards the area where it's getting to fair value again. It's probably worth more than 0.12p because it was oversubscribed and there's been a lot of interest clearly. But I just don't know if it was quite worth 003 at the time. So good opportunity for people now, that's for certain. Or certainly it's getting into that zone.
Yeah. No, the cash shells have been pretty good recently. Obviously there was, we talked about it last time. There was Palm Equatorial Oil, but they're a dying breed. There's not many left now. Really, they seem to be getting snaffled up in this market. I think there was Chal, CHAL. Try to think of the other ones.
Well, there's a few of these standard listings, which are like Chal, that's been around for years, and Mila Resources today went up a fair bit, having come back from suspension. These things have been around for 5 years and done absolutely nothing. If you go and look at NTLG, which is now being rebranded as Conduit, whatever it is, CCAP. I mean, I've obviously been talking about that lately. That company's different because it's NTLG sold off, divested its assets. They left the shell to a new group of people who've gone in, and it's Nick Lee from Perez Investments, and he's also involved with oh shit, I interviewed him recently. How embarrassing is that? Anyway, he's involved with a bunch of these vehicles. He was the guy who put the shell together for Metal Tiger. He was the guy who was involved with MX Oil when that came to market and went on a big journey. He's involved with Perez, and he's involved with a bunch of things. And they're investing in the tech space. It's got £1 million of cash. It's got £1 million of warrants queued up at 1.5p, and it's on 1.6 million valuation. I think it's an absolute screaming buy. There's been loads of churn. think there's a good opportunity there. I don't know if either of you looked at it.
Yeah, I've been aware of it, but I've certainly not taken a position. And I do have a few pounds looking for a home. Obviously, after Attis became good. So, yeah, I may have a look at that one over the weekend. I'm looking for something different. But no, there's certainly not many shells left at all. I mean, I think I can only think of that one you mentioned, and then obviously Attis is gone now as well. So, yeah, might need to do a bit of digging, see if there's any left.
Well, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but a couple of years ago they changed so what used to happen with shells is people would get them and they would raise a little bit of cash and they'd be run like little lifestyle investment sort of trusts. And they never really did anything. They'd invest in a few things. If they were lucky, they'd make a bit of cash and then go and spunk it on something else. And they just continually kept coming to market to top up the capital so that they could keep paying themselves a handsome salary. And what happened with regulation is they changed it and said, no, we're not doing that anymore. You either have to have a deal of size and magnitude, or if you want to remain to be an investment only company, you got to raise £6 million. Well, that put the kibosh on a lot of these sort of pissant little shell companies just being bumbling along for 5 and 6 years at a time, keeping people healthy as an additional annuity to its pension or whatever they were doing. These little old fuddy-duddy guys who'd been around the city would have a shell and then they'd sit on them for years. That's stopped now. Companies have to get on and get things done. And of course, the direct result of it is we're seeing a lot fewer shells and they're commanding a lot more money. I think Conduity Capital are probably the best opportunity out there right now, given the cash position and more so the people involved, because they're not going to sit on the laurels.
Yeah, there's not many shares in this at all. There was a consolidation, was there not, in that when they cleaned it all up? Was there not like 100 million shares, 125 million shares or something from memory?
I think you're right, yeah. I think that's about right. I think something like 100, somewhere around there. Riverfort Global Finance, Nick Lee's involved with too. So anyone who's aware of Riverfort, he's the listed entity, not the private company. He's the listed entity of that too. So these guys are continually out looking at lots of transactions and lots of deals, looking to finance vehicles and looking to bring ideas to market. I don't think they're going to hang around too long, and therefore I think there's a good opportunity. But hey, maybe Mark's got a view on it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Mark, just to finish off on that. I mean, obviously these things get suspended when the reverse takeover occurs. But the Eris one was rapid. I mean, that happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, I think it was only suspended for like 10 days. So, yeah, it depends. I suppose it depends how much work they've done in the background as to how long the thing suspends for. So if they're well advanced with the prospectus and the paperwork, obviously the suspension is not as long. But no, the Attis one was an amalgamation, which is a brand new one in me. I've certainly not heard that before. So I'm going to have a look at that over the weekend, because that obviously provided an opportunity for a lot of people to make a few bob. So sorry, Mark, and I know you were going to jump in there. On you go.
No, I haven't heard of them either. Worth a look, and I didn't know about Eris either. That's suspended and took over very quickly then. Yeah,
it was a very strange one because they were well financed. They weren't a cash shell. It was just a really left field reverse takeover for a lithium asset in Germany it's been kicking about. But no, it looks quite a good deal.
I mean, look, the nuts and bolts of this, or you get down to the brass tacks, is if the entity that you're acquiring is bigger than the listed vehicle, you have to go through a reverse. So in shells, in most cases with shell vehicles, the asset is nearly always bigger than the company. So it goes into suspension whilst that acquisition's made. So that's what I think happened with Eris. But you do find these you'll find these little shell companies that'll get up the valuations. And there were things like Chris Akers had a couple of years ago, like Concha and one or two others, where they end up with valuations of like 20, 30, 40 million quid. They don't actually have anything, but they have optionality. So they'll go and announce a transaction where they've invested $50,000 or something really sort of small and menial, and then they'll go and look for a big option on something quite exciting with a lot of potential value. So therefore they don't suspend, and then the valuation transfers into the vehicle, and then lo and behold, You have these shell companies on obscene valuations, and then they go and vend them in. They go and vend the assets straight in at, a 10 million valuation because the vehicle's massively overvalued or overinflated. They can do it without suspension. And we've seen that historically too. So you can never rule it out. You're not always going to see a suspension, but very often you are. But we're starting to see different components of it now, aren't we? Where the amalgamations or the Eris type transactions where they've clearly done a lot of the groundwork before the announcement. So it's, people are becoming more commercial. And the reason for that is, as I said earlier, I believe, is because gone are the days where you can just sit and play with your thumbs and, twiddle your dick long, for 6 and 12 months and get paid for it. Them days have gone. It's about getting out there, getting commercial and making things happen. And we're seeing good opportunities on the back.
I think a good example of the twiddling your dick would be Spitfire Oil. I mean, that was one that was probably 2 or 3 years. They were looking for, maybe not quite as long as that. It was at least a year. They were looking for an asset to reverse in, and eventually they delisted. So I'm assuming whatever money was left in the pot, which probably wasn't much, would be returned to shareholders eventually. But
no, it doesn't. No, that's the thing. What happens is they become a private entity, and the people who run it as a public entity now there's no accountability or a lot less accountability, and they keep the companies spinning along as private vehicles until they've took all of the money out. So these things never return cash to shareholders. If you're sitting there and you're invested in something, Global Petroleum was a classic one. They had 12.7 million of cash. The two guys behind it had done all of the licensing for the offshore. I think it was offshore West or East Africa. There was a massive influx of big cap companies coming in there. They sold all of the licenses and everything that they had for 200 million and retained this some of the assets in Namibia and a variety of places in Global Petroleum. It had about 12.7 million quid of cash in it. They put in a little management team. They sat on the board. They took the 200 million that they made from this licensing business that they put together. And you know what that company did? Jack shit. Everybody sat there and thought, well, these guys are now pretty loaded. They've got a couple of 100 million quid in the pocket each. They're going to go and do something with this listed company. They did nothing. And, the company recently raised 1.4 million quid. I believe now they're going to start deploying some cash. They're going to drill some wells because they realized the good days are over. And if you don't get things done, you're screwed. But honestly, there's Spitfire, Global, there's a whole history of these things. Yeah. And, I think you've got to put up or shut up now. That's where we're in that market. And I think certain people that have been around the market and around the traps for years have helped to contribute to that. And, I'm not a big, I know you've got a good relationship with Paul Johnson. I'm not his greatest fan, but what I will do is I'll doff my cap to the lad because he's one of these activists who doesn't sit around and let people take the piss. And I think the more people that we see like that, and we are seeing it, we're seeing lots of different groups now who are getting out there and getting things done. And it's holding people accountable for what they're doing. And sometimes you've got to hold the hand towards the fire to get them to do things. And, things are certainly changing as the years have gone by while I've been involved in the market.
Definitely. Looking at your Twitter feed talk this week, and I'm kind of kicking myself because I did have a position myself. Empire, you seem pretty proactive in that. Now, what's I know the backstory, but I mean, I'll let you talk about it because obviously you're very passionate about it just now.
Well, no, I'm passionate about making money. I'm in the market to make money. I'm not here to build great relationships and to fall in love with the companies. I mean, Empire Energy it's a strange situation because they'd operated out in Georgia for a long time. They had a big discovery out there. The guys that were involved at board level were ex-Lundin Mining. They were really sort of, they were really reputable people. They've gone out to Georgia, got the license, drilled it. They've got a massive copper gold find. I think the gold was, or certainly one of the components was unexpected. It was huge, and then suddenly they're in a wrangle with the Georgian government in being able to progress these licenses. They'd raised about 16 million quid 88 million quid at 16 pence, and things were going good guns. Anyway, they run into problems in Georgia. They've subsequently moved away from Georgia. A Canadian company, I believe, has now taken the Georgian assets on. Yeah. Mike Struthers is going to work with both Empire and the new company in Georgia. What it means is that it's provided access to cash to Empire, who acquired some Australian gold assets, which are popular these days, with the Eclipse asset. And if you look at Wishbone Gold, and certainly my old mate, Big Dave Lenegas, he's talking and parroting about the two. And the reason for it is because Dave, he's an ex-Kalgoorlie geologist himself. He knows all of the people that are involved. These assets have come from the same stable. So for anybody who's not aware of this, who's sitting there saying, well, Wishbone are on a 11 million valuation and Empire on an 11 million valuation, and therefore the assets must be the same. You know, Wishbone's gone up 11 times the money. Triple E it's about 60%. Well, it's from the last fundraise today, it was up exactly 100%, but that was a couple of months ago. And I think the progress they've made with a couple of decent drill holes, it's not a given just yet, Kenny or Mark, but it's certainly encouraging. 20 grams of a ton in one of the holes is certainly room to want to carry on with it. And what most people don't realise is the size and scale of the assets are not the same, but the stable that they come from were from a very well-known prospector who sadly has passed over. These assets become available. Wishbone got one bunch of them and Empire got the other. I think there's, if you were asking me which trap I was going to back, it'd be the one that's not had the move rather than the one that's had a massive move. But, you know, call me old-fashioned. It's had a decent run over the last few days, and I'm happy because I bought them, you know, a lot lower than what they are today.
Yeah, I'd actually bought some, it's probably 3 or 4 months ago, I'd bought a load at 2 pence, and it literally just a week after that, kind of sort of spiked up to sort of 3.5, 4 pence, and I just took the opportunity to exit and never really revisited it. And all of a sudden, you know, it's back up there. But no, it's certainly interesting, and I quite like. I think they've got a PGM asset as well that's got potential. Well, it's got more potential. It's got a resource. So no, it's definitely an interesting one. So it is, and it's got the right management team and the right people and geologists on the ground, and they're all set up in Australia. So no, that's definitely on the watch list. So it is. What about your watch list, Mark? Are you?
I saw you tweeting about that recently, Doc. But it's a new one on me, that one. But yeah, I'll check it out a bit more. Some of the ones that I'm looking at, they tend to be, or a couple that I was going to mention today, was there's not a lot of chatter about them. And one is, I don't know if you've heard of Destiny Pharma, either of you?
No. I have, obviously, I know you've spoke to, I think it was Alan Green, in the research talks. He done a stint with Destiny Pharma, but no, you can give me the lowdown because I've not really went into it deeply. I don't know about you, Doc, if you know much about them.
No, I mean, obviously, pharma companies are popular right now, so you know, any company that's not being talked about a lot, as long as there's good fundamental reason to get behind it, or there's good momentum in the area in which they're focused, I think that's the best opportunity to be looking at these things. So you know, let's hear it, Matt. You seem to have the rundown on that.
Well, I don't know, but I think there is stuff in there that just hasn't come to the surface yet. But effectively, what they're into is a treatment for MRSA. You know, the superbug that sort of plagues hospitals. And there's no cure for it at the moment. They've got this antimicrobial drug they call XF73, which is actually in phase 3 clinical trials now. And I think they nearly recruited all of the patients for their trial. I think they wanted 125, and I think they've got just over 100 at the moment. And that they expect the results of that trial to come out first quarter of next year. It's quite a significant point for the company. Hopefully, as they can sort of transition into more of a commercial sort of space, really, rather than we don't call it research, not exploration. I'm stuck in a mining frame of mind, but from the research into the commercial. But of course, they've also got a bit of a COVID thing going on as well. And they did a joint venture with a company called Sporgene, and using the same delivery method, which is like a nasal spray that they're using for their MRSA treatment. They're working on a similar delivery treatment for COVID, which actually uses the innate human immune system to actually provide some level of immunity to the COVID-19 virus that's obviously going around the world at the moment, and it's very topical. I like the look of them because I missed out on all the COVID sort of plays early on in the year, and I know a lot of people made a lot of money. It kind of feels like it's a good and a bad thing, but coming back into fashion seems to be what's happening, particularly with a lockdown and what is it, the furlough until March next year, certainly in the UK, which suggests things might go on for a while with that. And I think we have to face facts that it's not going away. COVID is not going away. It's something we are going to live with, or we're going to have to learn to live with. And I feel that certainly with Destiny, they had an £800,000 grant from Innovate UK, and they plan to do a trial of the COVID treatment in about 18 months' time. So, and what I like about them really is I like to find things that are sort of under the radar or not spoken about, and you search around for it, and there's only a very small number of people talking about it, not a lot going on. What I do notice though is it moves quite dramatically on low volume. I'm not sure why that is, but you sort of see it, a few trades go through and it's up 10-20%.
You probably find that's down to free float, Mark. So you've probably got a whole bunch of funds or important scientists that hold huge amounts of this stuff, and there's been a lack or an absence of opportunity for many years for people who've bought these positions to actually exit them. They come in with a long-term view. So if you've got quite a tight hold on the stock or a small free float, then you don't need a lot of trading to see the action. Now, look at some of the things like ODX or TILS or Avacta or any of these things. I mean, there have been some similar stories there where they've had incredibly strong and tight shareholder registers, but sadly, there's been an absence of opportunity for many years. COVID has presented a great opportunity. Yeah. And what you're describing to me is the kind of company that people should be looking at rather than chasing rainbows. Actually go and look at something like this and say, well, why are we seeing this volatility in the price action? And you know what, actually, if these have got something legitimate going on, then there's a great opportunity. Did the same thing with Open Orphan and so. Yeah,
I mean, as you say, chasing rainbows it's never a good idea. And you've got those big ones of Acta and Open Orphan and Omega, isn't it? Omega Diagnostics that all were in the right place, right time. That have really got all the attention. And when Alan talked to us about it on the Research Talks podcast, probably a month ago, maybe even more, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, I just thought, oh, you know what, that's worth a look because it is just unrecognised at the minute. It's just there's just very little chatter about it, and with what's coming up with the trial of their main drug sort of early next year, and the COVID play, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go with it. It's my first pharmaceutical I've ever bought, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's one that I was sort of keen on this week. The other one that I like the look of is Conroy Gold. And we might have mentioned Conroy. I don't know if we did last time. I can't remember, but I'm sure you both know about Conroy. It's been around long enough.
Yeah, Dr. Professor Conroy has been kicking the can around for about 20 years, hasn't he?
20 years, yeah. But what do you think at the minute, though? I mean, it certainly looks like it's turning a corner with this joint venture that is.
Mark, we're at a situation where they're celebrating the opening of an envelope at the moment in the markets, particularly in the gold space. So, I mean, I'm almost certain it'll do very, very well. Long term, is the history to support that move? I don't know. What I'm saying to people at the moment out there is when you see these things like alien metals we talked about last time, UFO, and some of these crazy moves we're seeing, the things like remote monitoring systems at 100 or 50 million market cap. I mean, this is obscene. The opportunities are probably going to come from the likes of Conroy. They've had a long time to spin a decent web and story together, and you would expect with the right relationships that if it's going to work, it's going to work now, and if it doesn't work now, it's never going to work. All I would caution with any of these things is if they've been around a long time and they've been continually or habitual failures, you've got to ask yourself, why do you suddenly think it's going to turn a corner today? The market's moved to them rather than they've moved to the market. So while the gold space is hot, these things are going to do well. Whilst COVID's hot, some of them will do well. Whilst, whatever it might be, making antiviral masks or whatever it is, hand sanitizers, it's good. You're going to go well. But the market's come to you. You're not necessarily going to the market. And if you're not changing and the market's changing, then when the market takes another twist and turn, which it inevitably will be, you're going to get stuck with some of this stuff. So you've got to be open-minded. But look, gold's hot, and there's no reason why Conroy won't be too.
Yeah, gold's hot, and it's probably going to be for a while, I'd say, as well. If we're in a turning point, it remains to be seen how it goes. But it feels that way to me, anyway.
Well, look, Kenny's propping up the silver price, so I mean,
of course he is. Yeah, Kenny, buy some gold.
Get him onto gold, and we'll have a healthy gold market for the next year or two.
I actually bought another 48 ounce yesterday, so they should be coming next week. That was from my artist winnings. But no, I'm going for it. I don't think I'll get to 1,000 ounces by Christmas. I think that's about 25, 26 grand.
So come on, move on, because if we let you talk and labour too long,
get me off a silver. Yeah, no, just to finish in Conroy. I mean, it's quite a strange way Anglo-Asian are going about this joint venture, because they're talking about it all the time in their presentation.
Yeah, I think
they had about 50 mentions of Conroy in their. I think it was either the interims or the finals. I can't remember. But they've not officially signed the joint venture. So it seems like a perfect relationship, as if the deal's done, but the deal hasn't been done. So, yeah, I think it'll be watch this space. I suspect COVID's maybe slowed down, I don't know, maybe a site visit or due diligence or something, but they seem to be, both camps are making the right noises. So, yeah, it's definitely, it could be good if they get the paperwork done and dusted, but
yeah,
there we go. Bobby, what you're looking at in the market at the moment?
Well, I mean, to go on from pick up where Mark was finishing with Destiny, I mean, I think, I mentioned this, I picked Open Orphan up pretty early doors, and those guys continually keep delivering. And Toro, one of the guys on Twitter, put a great sort of spreadsheet out that showed all of the things that they'd managed to achieve, and that was partnerships and government-backed investment and with the HVivo and Venn Life Science businesses. And he laid it all out, and you can just see these contracts are 5 million, 3 million, 40 million, 10 million. And you can see the substance to it. And these are a servicing company, really. I mean, they've got the 24-man independent quarantine facility, but they offer kind of a technology and a servicing business. So they're not just playing for a testing kit or just one aspect of COVID. They're actually involved in quite a wide range of it and lots of other things. But I think finding those companies, I mean, I think Open Orphan's valuation is incredible. When you see it at 30p and you're buying it for 5p, and it's been a very slow build and burn over perhaps something like ODX or Novasite, which went up like a missile. And there've been plenty of big pullbacks, which have been like white knuckle rides. Those kinds of plays are the ones that work. So your Destiny, your Open Orphan, these sort of things that slowly build and the story rolls out, and they've got a bit of diversity away from COVID, are always a good opportunity. But to follow that goal theme on, I like Contango. I think Contango Holdings raised all the money at 5p. I don't know if you've looked at the company, either of you.
Contango. No.
Contango, it's Charlie Golf Oscar, CGO. So these guys, they raised some cash at 5p for a coal project in Africa. I think I might have mentioned it one of the last times. They're quite colourful board of directors, hedge fund guys. But they successfully done lots of business in and around Zimbabwe, Mali, Mozambique, these difficult areas, these challenging areas. These guys have had lots of success and made lots of money at it. They've got this coal asset. They've got 2 or 3 offtake agreements already signed, and it was a little bit unsexy, really. It's, there wasn't the drugs and rock and roll in there to really get the spice into it. But they've gone and announced that they've done a transaction in the gold space one of my old compadres in the market, Money Sponge, has jumped all over this. He knows that it makes sense. By the end of by the end of the first half of 2021, these guys are suggesting that they're going to be producing gold with a valuation of $1 million a month EBITDA. Now, it's trading at about 8-10 million quid. So I think if by the end of the first half of next year, they can be generating 10-15 million quid a year of gold, they've got the offtakes on the coal, and we know that iron ore is going well. You know, these things all linked together. I think there's a good opportunity there. And I think whilst there's, like I say, a little bit of colour in the picture with some of the business that the guys at board level have done historically, they have made lots of money. And boards of directors that come in with interesting backgrounds, if they've got a history of making money, they're not in for the shits and giggles. They're in to make money again. So, you know, you've got to back them at the bottom of the cycle. It's 5.5 in the market now. They did all of the fundraising at 5p. And it's standard list, so they can't do another placing if they wanted to. They've used the headroom up.
Yeah, Mark, you've actually interviewed one of the guys from Katango. This is before they had the fundraising for the gold. I think
Lasprey, his name is.
Yeah, I'm sure you've spoken to him, Mark. The Lubo coal project or something.
Oh, was it a while ago?
Yeah, it was probably 2 or 3 months ago at least.
Yeah. Vaguely, I remember that. Do you know? I do so many. I get.
You need to stop smoking that stuff in Holland. So you do.
The ganja herb. Yeah. I get a whiff of that every Friday afternoon. Actually,
post a bit of that White Widow this way. You know, when I worked over there, there was some belter stuff, but. Anyway, we better move on quickly from that.
Yeah. No, it's a common thing. Yeah, no, you're right. I have spoken to them, but you know, I really can't remember very much. But if they've moved into the gold, that sounds pretty good. Because when you're talking about coal, there, I'm thinking, coal. I mean, I know it's still used in that part of the world more than it is over here these days, but it isn't sexy, is it? You know, it's not.
No, it's not. It's not sexy, and people try look at it and say, well, you know, where's the read across here? We don't want, coal is a draconian way of powering. Lots of these things, but what they don't realise, and we saw with companies like Tulu Energy back a few years ago, coal bed methane was there's shitloads of it around the area, and what a lot of people don't realise is power is being generated from burning diesel. So the idea of having a cleaner gas or actual coal and building a traditional typical power station that we might have in the UK, whilst it's draconian and old-fashioned, it's not quite as draconian as burning diesel fuel, and nowhere near as expensive. So there is a market for it. These guys have got history, and now they've got something sexy under the belt too with the gold. So I think that's going to be one to watch, and it's going to be one of my naps actually going into 2021, because I think the closer people get to that 1 million a month EBITDA, the higher the price will go. It's too cheap.
Yeah, I think you should get him back on, Mark. I think you should give him a wee...
Well, yeah, we should get him. We should do an interview with him, yeah, if there's a material change like that, absolutely.
Yeah. Just when you talked about your nap there, Doc, you just made me go and think to check. So I entered that Stockpedia. It's like, I don't know, I think there's 3,000 or 4,000 people in for it. I entered it back in January, so I'm sitting number 45 out of 2,000 at the moment. So I'm quite chuffed with that. I actually won one of these things back in about 2011, 2010. I was streets ahead of everybody else. I just got really lucky. I never actually won anything apart from being first. There was no prize, but no, I'm sorry. I was just diversing it. Just when you were going to get an app to check the stock picking challenge for 2020. The person that's reading it is 650% up, leading it, sorry. And I'm currently 200 something. So,
how many different stocks do you pick? One, or do you pick
no, 5. I'll pick 5. I'll just tell you what I picked if you want. Give me 2 seconds. So I picked ECR, one of your favourites. We can maybe talk about that in a minute. Toro Gold, Power Metals, Thor Mining, and Two Shields, but that's currently suspended, so I don't know if that actually counts for me at the moment, but I think Two Shields will be coming back pretty soon, so I might find that I'm back up the leaderboard. But that's just a bit of fun, I suppose. But no.
Well, anybody who backed Two Shields will remember Blenheim Natural Resources and should know the great Charlie Wood that's involved with Helium One. So they're all the same. All these guys all piss in the same pot. They all find each other. But look, there's a great pick of 5, a nice little basket and a great result. I mean, I always question these people who make one good call, because there's a big element of luck in all of our trading. But to go and pick 5 stocks and get a return like that, Kenny, I mean, probably should have put a bit of cash on that.
Yeah, but I mean, they can go tits up as well, Doc, as you know. And I think it was done in a piss and a panic. It was like I think an email came in and it was like, you've got 2 hours before the thing closes. So it was just stocks I knew more than anything else, without really digging too deep into it. But no, we should maybe, if we're still doing this podcast in 2021, and I'm sure we will, we should all pick 5 for 2021, and we should put like £100 into a pot, and the winner gets to pick a charity at the end of 2021. See who does the best.
Got the best performing, yeah.
Yes, I think we should do that.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I mentioned ECR is one of my picks in that competition.
Yeah.
Docket seems to be, it just seems to wants to keep going in the market. So it does. I mean, it's tried to fall below 2 pence, but it just keeps bouncing back. And I think today it must have closed about, 2.3, 2.4.
Yeah, 2.3.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Well, look, my view on that is it doesn't want to go below 2p for too long, and whenever it does, it aggressively bounces back. So for whatever reason, there seems to be a fair bit of interest. I think, things have cooled off now from when the company did an interview and talked about the 3rd largest mining company, or when, there's been lots of buzz and fizz around, Fosterville and Fosterville South. But at the end of the day, you look at some of the other companies like Red Rock and Power, and that are doing well in this space. ECR they're just kind of, paddling along, not too much coming out from the company, and the price seems to want to stay up. There's been lots of warrants converted. There's been people cashing in on their equity, but the price stays up. I'm absolutely convinced. My gut tells me that there's going to be something significant. If I'm wrong, it's going to hurt me in the pocket. If I'm right, then I think we're all going to do very, very well out of it. But you know what? If you were to judge that company based on Craig Brown and the enthusiasm that he seems to be showing publicly, you wouldn't want to buy a share. But I think the fact that he's quiet, he's behind the scenes, and the company stays up and it's doing well, that tells me there's perhaps something going on. And Craig's not the most charismatic fella in the world, but he's been shrewd, and he's been shrewd in the past, and he has made money. He's made money for shareholders. So I think maybe it's about time we see a decent move in that one. But again, we get them wrong as well.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I've said already. It's so obviously it's Friday. It's about 5:20, and although ECR have not announced anything yet, Power Red Rock came out with an announcement that they had picked up a big chunk of land that became available. It's pretty close to Creswick. It's only, 4 or 5 kilometres from Creswick, and it's contested. So Power have put an application in. Sorry, Power Red Rock. ECR has put the same footprint application in, as has the company that owns the Ballarat mine, and the VAM Minerals, who are, I think, an ASX listed company, quite a big player over there. They've also come in as well in for that license application. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out and who ends up with the license.
Yeah.
Or whether
so they've all gone in for the same license?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a bit of digging on this before we come on the podcast, and it appears that the license area went into moratorium, which basically means it's not been surrendered by the company that had it. It's I'm not saying they fell foul of any spend commits or whatever. I don't know the facts, but it's been put into this kind of holding period of 30 days, and nobody can apply for it within those 30 days. And then as soon as it comes out of the moratorium, people pile in. So I was actually quite surprised there was only 4 companies that had applied for it. I expected expected more than that, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
How does it work then with assigning it? Do you know how it works? Or?
Well, I don't actually know in Victoria. I know in the Northern Territory that of two companies that there's obviously initial criteria, cash, and if they tick all those boxes, if they can't settle it between themselves, whether one drops out or they do a joint venture, it physically comes down to a coin toss. And I know of one company or two companies, because obviously they toss a coin, and that's how they settled the license.
Okay.
In Victoria, I don't know. I'll need to do a bit of digging and trying to find out. I'm assuming that, the 3 or 4 sort of things they'd be looking at, it'd be, have you got a presence in the area? Have you got granted licenses? What kind of cash have you got? Are you overextending? I mean, there'll be multiple different aspects that they'll look at. But then I suppose if the companies turn around and say, well, we might be interested in doing a joint venture or something. I honestly don't know. I'm just speculating.
Well, I like ECR. As you said, Doc, I mean, we do get them wrong, but I think the upside is more compelling than the downside on ECR. And like, as you keep tweeting, I think some of your sort of price sort of suggestions that you put out won't be far off the mark if it comes in,
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark, if you look at some of the shite that's gone to 40, 50, 100 million quid market cap, they've got these, ECR's got a bucket load more than they've got, and nothing like the valuation. And I think when you go and look, for me, if it all goes horribly wrong and nothing comes of it, ECR's going to be 1p, maybe 1.5. If it goes right, it's potentially 10p, and even more.
Yeah.
So for me, on a binary basis, I'm happy to say at 2.3, I'll lose 3/4 pence if I'm wrong, or a penny if I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm going to gain 7 or 8. I'm happy with that. I think on a binary basis, we've got to be in the market for significant upside versus the downside that we've just discussed. This business is tricky because lots of people come into it and they buy, and the moment that they buy, they seemingly go into the red straight away, and it becomes a psychological battle where they're like, "Whoa, shit! I had 10,000 quid, now I'm down to 7,500, 25% down, and oh god, I've made a bad decision." These spreads on some of these things are terrible. The volatility is off the chain. You've got to be prepared to look at things and see loss and accept that is the nature of the beast, and certainly the risk that we're partaking in.
Yeah, absolutely you do. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
Kenny.
Yeah, well,
apparently you've got a Chinese on the go, have you?
Well, yeah, it's coming from about 10 minutes, so it is. I think my stomach kind of controls everything I do. So I think we'll wrap up. What you got your eye on next week, Doc? I mean, I'm kind of obviously I took part in the placing in Nostra Terra, and there's a drill program.
Well, let's carry on. Well, we've just got 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Let's carry on. Talk about what you want. Or do you want to call it?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you guys, what you've got your eye on for next week. So I was going to start with Nostra Terra. Obviously, they had an RNS this week that they've got the drilling permit, and you'd imagine next week at some point we'll get an announcement to say that they're drilling away. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to see what these guys do in the next couple of months. And again, it falls into the sort of serial serial dog that's been about for years and years and years, but it's pretty well funded now. They've had a recent placing, and they've done looks like some reasonable deals in the market in the last 2 or 3 months. So yeah, looking for some action in that one.
Do you want to wrap up with a few blue chips or something different, so we're not accused of just talking shit about crap Amy stuff?
Yeah, you can talk about BP or banks
whatever.
Do
you want to do it now, or you want to call it a day now?
Well, banks? I don't know. We can have a couple of minutes on banks. I don't know what's going on with banks. Well, I mean, Have had Lloyd's Bank on my watch list for, I think, for a long time, since when the government effectively bought them, and I thought that would really come back strong, but it never did really. It's still pretty low. And actually, talking about blue chips, another one, Rolls-Royce. That's a big one at the moment. I bought Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce, yeah. Well, I mean, I must hold my hand up and admit I made a rookie mistake with Rolls-Royce. I mean, it's not cost me anything, but it had a bit of a bad time, didn't it, Rolls-Royce? Was it 2 weeks ago? And I thought, oh, that's going to be great. I'll buy that up. I'll watch it for a couple of days. Anyway, it sort of retraced back up, and I thought, oh, I've missed it. I won't bother buying in. But then I woke up. I think it must have been last Wednesday morning, which was a bad day. Generally, if you remember, last Wednesday was a very red day all round. And I saw that Rolls-Royce was down 70%. I was like, oh heck, wow, incredible. And then on Thursday, down 10%. So I thought, right, well, this is well cheap. I'm going to buy it. So I bought it. Thinking, oh, that's really good. And of course, you don't really do the research until after I bought. And then I realised that the reason it was down 70% was because of the rights issue. So it hadn't actually dropped 70%. But I'd still bought it at a slightly lower price. But that was a bit of a rookie mistake on my part. But
what level did you buy them at, Matt? You don't mind asking.
70.
I don't think that's a bad level at all. I mean, I think most people...
Yeah, well, going forward, it probably isn't.
No, I think it's a great entry because if you own shares in the company at, say £1.50, and then you participate in the rights issue at 32p, was it one share in the rights issue at 32p for one share that you owned in the market? Can you remember?
No, wasn't it something like... wasn't it 3?
1 for 2, was it?
I seem to remember like 3 or something. I'm not really sure. Was it for every 3? No, it wasn't. Couldn't you buy 10 shares for every 3 that you held? Was that it? Or was that completely wrong? 3
shares for every 10, so 3.3. So I mean, I think what happened is when that rights issue took place, people didn't really. They looked at the figure and said, "Oh, 32p." The thing's screwed, and it was limping a bit, and then suddenly the shares went from sort of like £1 to £2 at a major rally, and then it collapsed, and it collapsed obviously once the rights issue took place. Yeah. But if you held shares in that at £1.50, and you had 10 of them, and then you got another 3 at 32p, and you start blending out your averages, you'll probably find that your entry at 70p is cheaper than anybody that was an existing shareholder who exercised the right at the rights issue. They've now got £2.5 billion under the pillow, and I'm sure they'll get on and get things done. I think long term there's a great opportunity there, and I think there's a good opportunity with. There's a big scandal with HSBC a few weeks ago about all of this vast dirty money that they'd been moving around, and banks weren't doing too well at the time. Blue chips were struggling, and then suddenly, HSBC's 50 pence better off. Barclays is the same. £1.10 from 90p in September. You can buy them at 90p. The £1.10. Anybody who says if you put money in the bank, you don't make any interest. Well, if you put money in the bank and you hold the equity, you can make a decent return, and we've seen it, a fair bit of late. So I think you'll do well with Rolls-Royce. And I think the banks are gonna. If there's another big pullback, I would be buying banks again. I own HSBC, and Barclays. And I think there's opportunity with the big cap oil as well. I've talked about it a lot. Shell, BP, lowest in 25 years. You're not going to get another chance at these. I don't know what your view is, Kenny.
I'm a bottom feeder. I tend to go for the dross in the market. It's a sector I've never really looked at, to be honest. Well,
look, let me put it to you like this: if you'd have bought shares in Shell at £9 and the dividend that they were paying last year was to be paid, you would have a 14% yield. So, anyone who's in the market who's been trading these, crazy swings and made some decent cash, I would say probably in the next few years, if you were to put 100 grand in something like Shell at these levels, if things return even 50% of where they were, that's gonna pay out a decent yield every year, plus anything in the growth. So your 10 grand that goes in is gonna pay you £1,400 or would have paid you £1,400 a year. And then if it goes from £9 back to £70 where it was when the oil price was $110, or back to 20 odd quid where it was before the COVID crash, you've got the growth and the yield. I mean, it's bananas. I think there's a great opportunity in some of these blue chips, guys. Totally being missed by the market. Galliford Try being another one, heavily cashed up in the housing sector. I think the Prime Minister and the Chancellor both said we're going to inject huge amounts of money into building new homes, affordable housing, all this shit. And Galliford Tries are right up there with the companies that do these types of things for the government, as well as a number of other things. They're trading below cash.
Yeah, maybe we should do a podcast just on sort of blue chip stocks rather than just spending 10 minutes on it, because it's obviously it's a topic that you're interested in, Doc. And like I say, I just don't give it the time of day just because it's not like my comfort zone, but I don't know. You get kind of stuck in the place that you're used to, don't you? So no, as you would say, there's definitely opportunities, and it's probably it's just
important, Kenny. It's important for people to realise that when you're sitting there and you're crowing on or chirping all day about some small cap speculative tech company or a gold company in a popular area, in a popular market at a popular point in the cycle of or time, that you've got to be able to have a little bit more as well. You as you start to grow as an investor, and I'm not suggesting you haven't, but I think if you've got these aspirations of wanting to go from 10,000 to 100,000 to £1 million, and you want to make it big, and you've got to be able to forage in other areas, because there's long periods of drought in the junior markets, which we've not felt for. Really, the last year has been quite good, or certainly the last 6 months has been good after that initial COVID crash. And then there was 6 months of stagnation and maybe a bit of sort of sideways choppiness. And then prior to that, there was another good period of time. But, if you go back over the last 10 or 12 years and you look at the market, there's long periods of drought in these junior markets, and there's not much liquidity, and it can be really crap. So trying to find opportunities at the bigger end where you can enter decent sized positions is hugely important, particularly if you want to be able to retire and live on a pension of a portfolio. You can't use ECR or one of these other power metals as your pension fund, because you'll either end up extremely rich or extremely poor. Exactly. And that's not where you want to be.
No, definitely not. Right. Well, my belly's starting to rumble because I'm definitely not eating the way I should be, spending far too much time sitting in front of the laptop. So, it's been great having you on again, Doc. Like I say, we'll try and do one of these every 2 weeks. I think one every week, whilst we can fill an hour, no problem. I think twice a month, or maybe even 3 times a month would be perfect. So, it's been great having you on, and appreciate the time. I know it's a Friday afternoon, and we said we'd have a beer in the hand. I've not got a beer in my hand. Have you got one in your hand, Doc?
No, I'm going straight into it now as soon as I get off this.
I'll tell you what I'm doing tonight. I'm opening a bottle of Moët tonight.
Oh, what's the celebration?
The celebration is that me and my wife have been granted, we have our residence permits now for the Netherlands. And before we left the UK, I was given a bottle of Moët by someone as like a leaving present. And we said, oh, well, when we get into the country, when we get into the house and we've passed the border, which was a big worry for both of us, well, certainly from my wife's point of view anyway, being Russian, we'll have the Moët, but we forgot about it. So we've been planning on when was to have it. So we decided when we officially have our residence permits in hand, that's like the final official hurdle. We're sort of safe and legal and everything in this place for the foreseeable future. And it's Friday, so it timed very well. So I've got pizzas that are on the way. And Moët, so that's me for tonight.
Pizza, Moët, and a load of weed afterwards is perfect.
Yeah, man.
Well done. Congrats. No, seriously, congratulations. I know it's a great achievement.
So how long does that keep you over there for, Mark?
That keeps us over. Well, no, it's effectively forever. I mean, it's a 5-year residence permit, but after 5 years, it's assumed that you're permanent. So
where in Holland are you, Mark?
Yeah, The Hague.
Yeah. So did you get dual nationality then after that 5-year status potentially?
Oh no, you have to apply to be a Dutch citizen if you want that. Which I think my wife will, because the Russian passport's pretty rubbish, to be honest. And the British one, well, remains to be seen if that is any good. I suppose we'll find out soon enough, won't we?
Are you going to change your name to Marco van Fairbairn?
Yeah, why not, eh?
I think the next podcast I'll just call you Marco. Just
Marco, yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll enjoy your weekend, and we'll no doubt speak again in a couple of weeks.
See you later.
See you later. Cheers, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Bye.
Cheers, bye.
Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with Fairbairn and Russell.